Hi there, and in this video we're going to be covering your listing configurations for your application. Now, earlier in the making your first app video, you would have heard us talk about your distribution types. We're going to look at that a little bit more in detail, okay? And also the listing type here for standard and white labeled, what basically is the rules around this and how do we get our app to be public, basically. So the first thing I want to point out to you is that the distribution type, as an actual functional part of using your app, it is basically saying I'm going to have access to the agency API or the sub-account API by granting this distribution type. Okay, so that's the first thing you want to kind of take into play if you are using the API. Okay, if you're not using the API, then your distribution type, it can really depend on how you want to sell your app. So what I'm just going to show you here is that here in the agency app marketplace, you can see there's a whole bunch of different apps. Okay, now to give you a very literal example, we have a whole collection of unlimited apps. Now, this word unlimited for us is utilized because we sell our agency sub-account type apps because these are agency sub-account type on distribution. We don't really use the APIs in some of these apps. But what you're basically doing here is that when it comes to the installation of this, you're going to say that I'm going to install this into all of my sub-accounts, which is a benefit that you can get by doing it this way instead of having just a sub-account type app. So this sub-account type app, the way that it is, you would not be able to do this type of installation where you're saying to the user, hey, I'm more than happy for you to install this into each sub-account in one mass way. Okay, and then the pricing can come up to this as well, where you can see here we're charging $39 for unlimited access for this app, or you can pay $4.90 for each sub-account that you want to install it into. This all comes into the pricing information again inside of another video. But you could come here, select all accounts, continue through. It's then going to check off all of these. You can then go through the allow and install. You then pick what is your pricing that you'd like to go for, and then you can go through and install it into all eligible accounts. Now, eligible accounts, the reason why we talk about this is because apps on these types of subscriptions need to be pushed through SaaS accounts. Now, SaaS accounts is needed because you need a card to basically to be able to charge either the agency or the sub account, basically. So you might get into some problems with not having SaaS accounts being able to access applications that are pay to use. But if they are free to download, you should be able to basically access them. Again, this kind of like mixes in with your distribution type and your pricing and what you're going to do with it. So again, if we go to the sub-account type apps, and we just jump back here into the app marketplace, you can control and see your sub-account app types by coming over here into the sub-account type store. Sorry, trying to get the right words here. Now, some of these things are going to look a bit different most probably by the time you see these videos, and we'll make some updated videos because I've been told there's going to be some updates coming very soon. But all of these applications here are all found inside the sub-account store. Now, you can find the exact same type of one that's accessible in the agency sub-account store, but you're actually able to install it into all sub-accounts because you're selling it to the agencies and you're giving agencies the capability to install it into all of the sub-accounts. If you put it on here in the sub-account store, you're basically allowing for the agencies to sell the applications within inside their sub-account store. But what could happen is that they could go ahead and remove the sub-account app store, and they could also go ahead and allow for the App Store not to be seen at all. So depending on how the agency would like to work, maybe is the way that you would like to set up your app based around if you would like agencies to be allowed to be able to install it into all of their sub-accounts, or if you just want the sub-accounts to be only allowed to install them themselves. Now, the reason why you have white labeled and standard for your listing type, well, if you're white labeled, what you're basically saying is that inside of your app profile and inside of your basic info of this application, you're going to make sure that you're not using any of the words of go high level, GHL, or any of those kind of things. You will see the pushback if you're trying to save that with that. Now, if you go for standard, you can talk about go high level, okay? Now, if you're making a standard app, what will happen is that if somebody is logged into a white label URL, now you can see the one that I'm logged into here is app.go high level. Okay. Now, this one here, you're going to be able to see standard apps and white label apps. But if you're only on the white label, if you're on what, sorry, standard apps can only be seen on app.go high level domains, and white label apps can be seen on white label domains by white label agencies. So you'll get a larger audience by making sure that you apply to the white label. This will get you more visibility across the marketplace. Now, when it comes to private and public apps, what will happen is that when you try and make your app public, this means that you want to be able to have it shown on the marketplace in general, and also found inside of the app marketplace inside of GHL. What you're going to have to do is make sure that you filled in all of the essential information here, and also inside of here, and inside of here. Once you've filled in all of this stuff here, you are then able to go ahead and make your app public. Once it is public, it will then be available on the App Store. Now, you might need to wait a couple of days for your app to be visible on the App Store, but this can usually take around a week, maybe 2 weeks to get your app there. Okay. Now, there are certain things you're going to want to do with app updates. We'll talk about that again inside of another video, but I hope this explains the listing configurations and what it kind of has an effect on to your application.